Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the absolute chaos of how panic actually spreads across a digital network. We're going to look right past the raw data and focus on the very human behavior driving it. Because, when that bedrock illusion of stability shatters in the crypto world, it is not just a bunch of red numbers ticking down on a screen. It's a massive, coordinated human reaction fueled by pure, unadulterated fear. People panic. They scramble. They make these wild split-second decisions with their life savings. So let's dissect exactly what that looks like, both at an institutional scale and right down to the individual wallet. Real quick, before we get into the weeds, I want to note that this digestive summary explainer is strictly for research and educational purposes. We are mapping out a truly premier academic investigation today, put together by researchers Sankaewtong, Kitzler, Haslhofer, and Ikeda over at Kyoto University and the Complexity Science Hub. We're basically going to use their fascinating findings to help us understand the sheer mechanics of digital contagion. So the big question we're tackling today is this. When the supposedly unshakable illusion of a stablecoin breaks, how exactly does fear travel from user to user? Stablecoins are designed to be the boring, reliable bedrock of DeFi, right? They're pegged exactly 1-to-1 to the US dollar. But when that peg actually slips, does the network just gently correct itself, or does it ignite a total digital stampede? To find out, let's set the scene. We're looking at the crime scene of March 2023. Take a look at the exact moment the peg just completely shattered. When Circle revealed that, $3.3 billion of its reserves were struck in Silicon Valley Bank, USDC went into absolute freefall. In traditional banking, a bank run means people physically queuing up outside a brick-and-mortar building in a panic. But here, the run happened instantly. The sheer terror was completely visible for anyone to see on-chain as the price just plummeted away from that safe $1 haven. Now, you might naturally wonder, was this shockwave contained to just USDC? I mean, it was the asset directly affected by the news. Did the rest of DeFi just grab some popcorn and watch USDC burn? Or did the panic somehow infect the supposedly safe neighbors too? Well, check this out. The data reveals that transaction activity across the entire ecosystem suddenly synchronized into this collective market-level panic. Just look at that massive coordinated spike. Even coins that had absolutely zero exposure to SVB saw their transaction cycles perfectly align with the others. It was literally an ecosystem-wide alarm bell going off simultaneously. And the wild part? It was driven entirely by contagious user sentiment, not any actual mechanical failure in those other coins. So the alarm bells are ringing. But as this panic spread, a really fascinating mystery popped up. How did different types of users actually try to escape the burning building? Because it turns out, it wasn't just a uniform stampede where everyone ran for the exact same exit. This is where it gets super interesting. We see this bifurcated contagion pathway. Basically, the panic split into two totally distinct survival strategies. On one side, everyday retail users frantically traded out of USDC and DAI in huge numbers, just trying to save whatever they could. But on the other side, institutional whales quietly moved these massive dollar volumes into USDT and wrapped assets to absorb the shock. One channel was pure, chaotic human panic, and the other was strategic, institutional-scale absorption of capital. Just look at this stark contrast here. On the left, user counts for USDC absolutely skyrocket. Hundreds of thousands of everyday people are moving money. It's a frantic explosion. Meanwhile, over on the right, the new user count stays pretty flat, but the sheer size of the money being moved per transaction goes completely off the charts. It is a stunning visual of two completely different demographics playing out the exact same crisis in real time. All right, let's zoom in a bit. We know the high-level split between retail and whales, but what was the actual step-by-step logic of an individual user watching their life savings drop in value? Tracking exactly what these terrified users did with their wallets reveals so much about human psychology under pressure. The data reveals a massive flight to safety. Accounts were aggressively abandoning single-coin portfolios in favor of multi-coin holdings. They were desperately trying to spread their risk. Before the crash, users were perfectly happy keeping all their eggs in one basket. But the second that peg broke, you see this dramatic plunge in single-coin loyalty. It's exactly like realizing your neighborhood is on fire, so you immediately spread your valuables across 3 different friends' houses, just hoping one survives. And tracking their exact digital footprints reveals a total smoking gun. We're talking a massive, immediate exodus directly from USDC straight into USDT. They weren't cashing out to traditional banks, that takes way too much time, and they weren't fleeing into volatile assets like Ethereum. The dominant reaction was a rapid lateral jump. They didn't want to leave the ecosystem. They just needed a structurally different safe room to hide in. But here's the thing. This wasn't an equal opportunity panic. When the researchers actually looked at the demographics of these fleeing accounts, the results were completely eye-opening. The size of your wallet heavily dictated your stress level. If you break it down by wallet size, the smallest and medium accounts made the most dramatic, panicked moves by far. They were highly volatile, frantically repositioning everything. But the absolute wealthiest accounts, the top 20%, they largely just rode it out. Because they hold massive capital, they could afford to sit tight and absorb the shock. Everyday retail users, on the other hand, felt the immediate, terrifying, existential threat of losing their smaller, essential savings. And man, these heat maps are crazy. Normally, blockchain activity follows standard waking and trading hours. You see very clear lulls when people sleep. But during the crisis, those dark periods of rest completely disappeared. The panic ignored time zones entirely, turning into this 24-hour frenzy as people woke up in cold sweats all around the globe to check their bags. It didn't matter if it was 3 a.m. locally. The fear kept the network glowing red hot all day and all night. Okay, so let's bring this all together. What do we actually do with this information when it comes to redefining systemic risk? Well, this research basically proves that a stablecoin collapse is fundamentally driven by human behavior. That means we can map out and measure systemic risk by watching account flows and network panic rather than just staring blindly at dropping prices. The price is literally just a symptom. The disease is the synchronized behavioral flight to safety. By analyzing exactly how accounts reallocate under stress, we get a much deeper, more predictive understanding of network health. Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. If future crashes are driven by these human behavioral networks, are we looking at the completely wrong warning signs if we only watch the price peg? I mean, to truly anticipate systemic risk, we have to look beneath the surface and trace the incredibly human anatomy of a panic. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep an eye on those on-chain flows, and I'll catch you next time.